On March 4th, 2021, Jack Dorsey's company, Square, bought a majority stake in Jay-Z's streaming service, TIDAL. Why did this happen, and what it could mean on this week's Bar for Bar podcast? Welcome to the Bar for Bar podcast, and this week we're talking about TIDAL and how Square recently acquired a majority stake for a cool $297 million. So, a little bit of history on both companies. So, starting with TIDAL. TIDAL was originally launched in 2014 by the Norwegian company Aspiro. It was then shortly after acquired by Project Panther Bidco, which is essentially a holding company that was founded by Roc Nation and basically Jay-Z at that point. TIDAL has always been about putting the artists first and putting them up, and the main way that they've been doing so has been by offering one of the highest payouts per stream. And this has always been the case. TIDAL has always wanted to put the artist first. I think Jay-Z said that TIDAL has always been for the artists to succeed in some way. Because, there's other streaming services out there, but as a artist-owned streaming service, it's only right for the artist to be put first. As a artist-owned streaming service, not artist-first streaming service. So, with that, they are essentially, like I said, one of the highest-paying streaming services. So, for each stream, you'll get the most money. They're actually just barely behind Napster, apparently, which I think Napster is maybe just a tiny bit more. But for reference, each stream on TIDAL gives the artist $0.01284. So essentially 1.3 cents per stream. Whereas other streaming services, like the major ones, Apple Music, gives artists $0.00783 per stream, or 0.78 cents per stream. And Spotify gives $0.00318, or 0.318 cents per stream. So, huge disparity there between the major players. Then we also have YouTube to consider, because YouTube is a streaming service in their own right. YouTube Music exists, but there's a lot more going with it. YouTube Music specifically, though, is just dead last in terms of how much they pay out artists. They pay $0.0008 per stream. So 0.08 cents per stream. But like I said, you have to also take into consideration that YouTube isn't only just for music. So if you have music videos, or even just your music as an upload on YouTube, there is the potential for ad revenue. So that gets a little bit more messy, and it's not as clear cut as the other streaming services. So that's a little bit of backstory on TIDAL and how much they pay out versus the competition. Now, let's take into consideration, let's take a look at Square and what they're all about. So, with Square, there it is. With Square, they were founded by Twitter's Jack Dorsey, as well as Jim McKelvey in 2009. The reason for this venture was because Jim, in around 2009 or so, wasn't able to make a sale of, I think it was like $2,000 for some work. I forgot exactly what it is now. But he was unable to make that sale because he couldn't accept credit cards. Now, anyone who's had a physical storefront would know just how difficult it can be to process payments when you're limited in what you can take, or if you just don't have the resources for a POS system. I mean, alongside that, there's a whole slew of things that you have to take in consideration, like the percentages that credit card companies take, whether or not it's really worth it to take checks, how debit cards are going to work for you, all sorts of things like that, which is another thing in itself. But the purpose of Square was to make it easier for small businesses to flourish. Like, I don't know the exact breakdown of how much Square takes or how much they charge for anything, but the point is, it was meant and created for small businesses to really develop themselves and not be limited to just cash or check transactions. So yeah, in general, good for small businesses. Another thing that Square does is they also have Cash App and their seller app. So they're not only just known as Square Inc. They have a few other ventures already. So on March 4th, just a couple days ago, Square acquired a majority stake in TIDAL for $297 million. Along with this announcement, it was also announced, I guess, that Jay-Z will be joining Square's board of directors, while also maintaining his seat at TIDAL's board of directors as well. In the press release for this acquisition, it was stated that TIDAL will continue to operate independently within Square alongside how said the seller and Cash App, like how they work. So it's not like Square is going to be, or at least that's what it sounds like. It sounds like Square isn't going to be super involved in their operations. Kind of like how, let's say, with car companies. Like, well, I guess that's not really a good explanation because they still are very intertwined. But it's kind of like, yeah, actually, a lot of other companies really do have a lot of like integration with each other, but it's more like they'll let them exist on their own. At least that's what it sounds like from here. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that Square is all about commerce and selling things or moving money around with Cash App. So with that in mind, why'd they do this? Why buy TIDAL, or why buy majority stake in TIDAL? Also keep in mind that I think in 2017 it was Sprint for some reason decided to buy 33% of TIDAL for, I think it was $200 million. So assuming that they still have it, yeah, I don't know what's left for Jay or whoever else owns part of TIDAL. Like, I think at this point it's Square, like with the huge piece, then Sprint, and then Jay and Associates. Anyways, back to the question of why they did this. According to the press release, also according to Jack Dorsey, this is an actual quote from him. It comes down to one simple idea: finding new ways for artists to support their work. New ideas are found at intersections, and we believe there's a compelling one between music and the economy. I knew TIDAL was something special as soon as I experienced it, and it will continue to be the best home for music, musicians, and culture. So with that, it sounds great. Like, everything sounds very positive. It doesn't sound like there's any sort of hostility, I guess, or it's not like it's, I mean, obviously it's about the money for Square and TIDAL, but it also sounds like they're trying to give more options for the artist. And it really does sound like a great idea for everyone involved. Like, I don't see any downside as of right now. And it's especially good for newer artists. I would say, because they are able to get additional revenues of income or sources of revenue. Anyways, but that applies to both new artists and established artists that already have other sources of income. Now, how I imagine this is going to work is, so I haven't used Spotify in I don't know, 6 months or so. But when I was using Spotify, you would often see on the artist pages merch or ticket sales or, basically links to support the artist in other ways other than just streaming their music. I know that TIDAL did this as well for a little while. I don't know if they still do this because the few artists that I followed haven't posted anything about it. But my understanding of it is is going to go how Spotify is doing it, or even how YouTube is doing it. There's a lot of content creators on YouTube who post, whenever they post a video, right under the video itself, right around the description area, they'll have links to their merch page and individual pieces of merch. Typically, it's via Teespring. So there's that. I imagine it's going to be something like that for TIDAL. Even though they made it sound like this is going to be completely independent, I feel like that's going to be where Square really implements themselves. Square, like I said, is all about selling things. It is essentially a commerce source or company. So building that into the TIDAL app could be good. Like I mentioned, for established artists, they're obviously great. I mean, they're probably doing fine right now. They have their revenue kind of sorted out, you could say. They can just go on Twitter one day and tweet out, "Hey, new merch. Here's the website," and people will jump to it. Cool. What they're probably going to do now is also introduce that into TIDAL. Well, assuming that this is how it's going to go. Because given what Jack said about the providing other sources of income for musicians and basically adding to TIDAL, I would highly suspect that maybe in the next year or two, we'll have Square integration into the TIDAL app. What this will allow for is for, smaller artists for sure, but also established artists, like I mentioned, to more easily reach their fan base. I don't know about you, but a lot of my favorite artists I try to support by buying merch. I know, I can stream their album all day, sure. And like I said, though, they only get pennies from me. With that, I don't feel like I'm really supporting them as much. But if I go and buy their merch, they're getting just a lot more out of it. You have to also think about margins and all that. I mean, it's from a business aspect, merch and concerts are typically where these artists are going to be getting most of their income. That is a huge source of income. Unless there's someone like Drake, they're not going to be getting hella money off of streams. So support your artists if you can. But regardless, having this integration will really help artists, I feel. It's basically making it a lot easier for fans to have a way to access their merch and have a way to support their favorite artists. Like I said, if you're an established artist, you can very easily just be like, "Hey, here's the link. Go to my website and buy merch." And people will do it. Look at Travis Scott. Whenever he posts merch, it sells out pretty quickly. I mean, he sold a fucking chicken nugget pillow. What? But for smaller artists, you don't always have that luxury. With streaming services in general, there's a lot of discovery, you could say. So, I mean, Spotify does this really well, but other sources like Tidal, they have, like, when you finish an album or when you listen to a song, it'll start playing related music that they feel like you may enjoy. With that, you find new artists, and you may be like, hey, I want to support them. But then you can't really find where to buy their merch. A lot of lesser known artists either have like a general merch page that they use like via Teespring, like I mentioned, or like another sort of, I guess, marketplace site, but not really through them directly. Or it's not really easy to get to or find. So adding this integration with Square, you're basically going to be buying directly from the artist rather than, I mean, there's going to be commissions and everything, just like with other marketplaces, but this is going to be a little bit easier, I feel, especially just for new fans and fans who don't know how to find their merch pages for whatever reason, because it is hard sometimes. Now, this sounds great. I hope that's how it's going to go. But, we'll see. We will have to see. Before I get into, I guess, the last bit that I want to talk about, there is also a lot of talk about NFT and blockchain alongside this acquisition. I mean, blockchain's been pretty popular, or like getting a lot of traction, but NFT, especially right now in the last week, has gotten a lot of attention in the music industry. First, before I get too into this, I know almost nothing about this, so please correct me if I'm wrong at any point. But basically, the gist of NFT, I forgot what it stands for now, but let me pull it up real quick. Because I literally had this pulled up. Non-fungible token. That's what NFT stands for. So, essentially, the gist of an NFT, or what the purpose of it is that you're buying an original digital collectible of sorts. I watched this clip that explained it pretty well, but the kind of like a paraphrase of that is, take for example the Mona Lisa. It's an amazing art piece. It's worth so much money. But, obviously there's going to be copies of it that are going to be displayed in museums everywhere, and there's only one original. Now, you can very easily just buy a copy or take a picture of it and print it out yourself, or go to Google and print out a picture of the Mona Lisa. But there's no value in that. The value is in the original copy. That's kind of the idea with NFT. Like, so the creator or artist or the seller, you could say, basically will put up this item for auction, and it is a digital item, and it will be purchased via cryptocurrency, typically Ethereum. What they're doing here is selling you the certified original piece. So kind of like with comic books or trading cards, they're certified and graded, but with digital you can't really grade an item, I guess. But again, essentially what it is the original copy. Now, again, you can very easily just make a copy of it, but the whole purpose of NFT is that you're getting the original copy. So that in itself is valuable. At least that's what they're saying. And it makes sense because obviously artists and content creators, or really any sort of content that can be purchased, like, it has value, of course, because someone put in the work for it. It has to have some sort of value. That's just kind of how things are. But, it's still very new. So I don't know how good this is going to be long term, or if this is going to just kind of fizzle out, or if it's just a trend, but we'll have to wait and see. as of right now, I think the first artist, like musically, to put out anything via NFT are the Kings of Leon. I don't know if they've actually put it out yet, or they're releasing it via NFT, but that's kind of where things might be going. And the whole purpose of bringing this up is that Jack Dorsey has been talking about NFT and blockchain pretty frequently, at least the last couple of weeks. So it's not going to be too much of a stretch to assume that Square might go into that, and by relation, TIDAL, like that is definitely a possibility. We will just have to wait and see. I mean, what I could see right now is, so TIDAL offers master streams of some music, but what if with Square, artists are able to sell a master copy as NFT? Again, I don't know very much about NFT and blockchain and how the specifics work, so please correct me if I'm just mistaken entirely. But going back to the main point of this discussion, although Square is saying that TIDAL will operate independently, I think that's going to be very short-lived, and it's going to be more of a collaborative experience for the two. Given what Jack has said in the press release, it sounds like Square wants to offer additional streams of revenue for artists outside of only their music. That's dope, and I feel like most artists want to do something like that anyways. Hence, like merch, like that's the biggest extra source of income. Obviously, financial literacy is important for artists too. That's why people like IDK are buying property, like land, rather than cars. Like they want to invest their money. That's a little bit different. I mean, that is a more long-term thing. I feel like merch is a lot quicker, at least in terms of revenue, but I could be wrong as well. I don't know the base. I know the basics. I don't know all the intricacies of it. Now, going back to how Square is doing things, yes, I think this is how I think that's what artists want. They want additional sources of income because, especially for small artists, you typically have to work really hard. And I mean, I know if you've watched any of the previous podcasts I've had with some of my rapper friends, they still have jobs. Like they can't be full-time rappers because that's not putting food on the table yet. Like they still have to work. And I think that's something that people forget pretty often. Like artists still need to make money to support their art. So having additional sources of income is essential for them, at least in my mind. Like it makes sense. Now, how would what Square may offer differ from what artists are doing currently? I don't know. I don't think it's going to differ that much. If anything, it's just going to be easier for artists to sell merch. Because right now, you have to have a website of some sort and sell your merch via that. With Square, you can set up like a Shopify or something and integrate it with that, maybe. Again, I know very little about the commerce side of merch. All I have is a Teespring. Also, make sure you buy merch whenever you get the chance. But my understanding of what Square can do is it's just going to make it easier for artists. Like, that's kind of the goal, to simplify things as much as possible and to support the people who are working hard to make things that we enjoy. I think the best thing that Square can offer is just an easier way for artists to add to their revenue. I think that's really what's going to benefit the artist the most. But we'll have to wait and see, because it's still being processed. Things are still being done. Nothing's been completed yet. And we probably won't see any changes for at least a year, maybe 2 years. So everything's speculation at this point. But I think that's all I got for now. Yeah, that's all I got. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this partnership or acquisition, whatever you want to call it. Whether or not it's actually going to benefit the artists, or if it's just Jay-Z moving his money around. Also, remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thank you for watching, and please stay safe out there.